Hey guys, pretty cool game was released a few days ago, The Sinking City 2, which was mostly crowdfunded and it pretty much smashed the initial funding goal in less than 2 hours back in March 2025, I think, which translates to the fans really wanted this game to happen. Welcome back to GeekJ, where we make tech, tutorials and gaming simpler and better. So let's check out how this game looks and performs in its vanilla state. It is an Unreal Engine game and we know what that means in regards to optimization as of late, unfortunately. And let's see how this does in my system, which rocks an R7 5800X 3D, 32GB of DDR4 RAM, and an RX 6800 XT, which is RDNA2 and considered ancient. And basically it defaulted to some decent settings, so let me fire up the game and show you how this looks and performs. Even though I am on AMD hardware, the game defaulted. If we go into options and video over here, it defaulted to the TSR Upscaler resolution quality, and as you can see, it is set to 100% over here on resolution quality. If we hover over this upscaling, it does say NVIDIA DLSS, deep learning super sampling requires whatever RTX video card. Then we get the AMD FSR Fidelity Effects Super Resolution, which is meant for AMD users, and then TSR Temporal Super Resolution. So basically our choices were none or TSR over here. I did some research and it turns out they haven't implemented it yet into the game as of the filming of this video, obviously. Now, as you can see, the VSync option is set to on, FPS limit is set to off. Unfortunately, motion blur was set to on, and the graphics setting over here, the preset, is set to high. And with all that info out of the way, let's actually see how the game looks and performs in these default settings. So as expected, the motion blur, if I move the camera, kind of destroys the whole image over here. It is looking pretty awful, especially since we're getting above 30 FPS. It should be disabled in most games. This is something that was developed mostly for consoles that usually run games below 60 FPS and they are stuck at the 30 FPS cinematic experience. So motion blur was kind of added to make the games look smoother, I guess. But since we are above 60 FPS over here, this kind of tends to look pretty bad. And if you see around here, we can actually interact with some of the items over here. You can see that it does look pretty blurry and shimmery. There's a lot of pixel instability, unfortunately, and there is a lot of like boiling noise kind of everywhere over here. And we do see some kind of grainy noise as well. So these are kind of combined together for some reason, and the rain on the windows and stuff looks pretty weird. Kind of blurry textures as well. We see we have around 100 FPS on average over here in the interiors, and let's try and walk outside over here and see how the performance is. Unfortunately, we don't really get reflections of the main character. It's kind of weird. Yeah, textures are kind of okay. We just unfortunately get a lot of noise in this game. So yeah, let's walk outside. So yeah, as we walk outside, we do see an average of around 85, 86 FPS, while inside it was a bit higher, 100 something FPS on average in the starting area. Overall, the game looks okay-ish, I would say, but it's nothing groundbreaking, and the rain effects on the screen are pretty distracting in my opinion. I would prefer just a few, raindrops here and there, but having, all the raindrop trails in my face all the time, I don't like it. But this is not about the graphical fidelity of the game. So in regards to graphical fidelity, unfortunately, textures look a bit noisy, even at this, 100% resolution quality, as they call it. I do see they are blurry, especially in the distance. They get more and more blurry, and there is a lot of aliasing, as you can see, even right in front of us on the guardrail for the balcony and the stairs. The ladder, the metallic ladder in the distance over there, and the cloth that's flowing right underneath it, it's very unstable. There's pixel instability, it's shimmery, and it's blurry. So, you know, it's sadly this is what we get. I'm gonna go and grab the boat that is waiting for us downstairs, just so we can take a better look at the foliage, especially the trees, and we'll continue the conversation over there. Very, very unstable and very shimmery kind of everywhere, unfortunately. So now we're gonna turn around here, and I want you guys to see the foliage over here, especially the trees. They look pretty bad, and if we're, you know, on a static camera, they look a little bit better. But as soon as we move, the leaves kind of have an aliased look, and also seem like they have a transparency or a disappearing issue over here as well. So most trees look very bad in my opinion over here. Their leaves kind of tend to disappear and kind of move around because of the shimmering and everything. So it's pretty weird, as you can see, even in the distance, and even when we just pass them over here. Pretty weird, unfortunately. While we're on the boat, we do get a slight boost on our FPS over here. We do get like 90 to 93 FPS around here, and it does look kind of okay, but we do get aliasing, and it's very blurry, shimmery. It's at the same time, it looks kind of okay and kind of weird. Everything is aliased, the cables over here. Yeah, not a very good showing. Now I'm gonna go back into options now that I have reloaded the game, and as I mentioned before, I was very surprised to see that even though I am on an AMD GPU, I do not have access to FSR, so it's not implemented yet in this build of the game. I am stuck with either no upscaler or TSR. And let's try using none over here. And I did try this before, and unfortunately, when I do this, I get insane ghosting, as you can see over here, no matter what I do, and the image overall looks worse. But we get worse performance as well. So instead of hovering around the 100 FPS over here on average, we dropped, and yeah, we get, I don't know why, a worse image in some places and a better image in some other places. So let me just go outside so we can experience how this looks without the TSR upscaler. So yeah, a lot of ghosting over here on my end, unfortunately. Blurry character faces over here. The textures look blurrier, and the boiling noise is a bit calmer, but I do still see it over here, the boiling noise plus the grainy noise at the same time. The ladder, the metallic ladder in the distance, still kind of looks weird and shimmery, and now it has a disappearing, it's like a transparency layer kind of issue over there. The cloth over there looks sharper, but also more aliased as well, and we do drop to the 60s over here when we walk outside. So even though the TSR upscaler was set to 100%, it still, I don't know, does something, and that's why it looks overall worse, I guess. But yeah, now we're on the 70s, and once we hit the water, performance is going to be around the 70s as well, if I remember correctly. So let's go on ahead and test that. The rain looks better with a no upscaler, so TSR was doing a pretty bad job at, you know, maintaining those rain particles visible. It's not great with a none as well, and we can see a lot of noise up there in the rooftops, but it is what it is. We still see the issue with the trees, and we are at the 75 FPS on average around this area over here while traveling by boat. And I think the only thing left to do in the vanilla game is to test TSR again at 100% resolution quality, as they call it, disable motion blur, and set the quality preset to ultra. So let's see if it looks any better or worse. So I'm gonna go back to TSR and let's go with motion blur off, and we're gonna go with ultra, which is the highest preset over here. I'm gonna press back once, and as you can see, we do get lower than 100 FPS over here. We're hovering around 88 to 90 FPS in interiors over here. The glass effects look a little bit better, but I still see some noisiness, the boiling noise around the lights over there, and some grainy noise on the textures all over the screen. Let me see how this looks. It does look a little bit better, and we're not taking a massive performance hit over here, but it is still a performance hit. So let's walk outside, see what we get. So this is better performing than no Upscaler. It does look better also, and it's good to see that we're not taking such a massive, performance hit as we were taking with no Upscaler usage, even though they are not upscaling. So I don't know what TSR is doing in the background over here, but it does do something. A lot of the issues we had with high are still present on the ultra preset, so not a lot has been fixed over here. As you can see, the textures do look a bit better, but we still suffer from that boiling noise, and we can see it kind of everywhere, especially on the wall over there under the light, and then on the textures on the back of the character over here. And also we can still see the same issues with grainy noise and extra sharpness. I'm guessing that it is applying through the TSR Upscaler over here, and we still get the pixel instability and a lot of shimmering and disappearing stuff over there on the metallic ladder. And the cloth is looking kind of weird because around its border it's kind of disappearing as well, and it looks very aliased. So yeah, I don't really know if that was the intention over here, but yeah, on average over here we're getting around 80 FPS at this specific location. Let's go on the boat and see how everything else looks and performs, especially with the trees. Let's see if there is any change in the foliage now that we are on the ultra preset. Yeah, the boiling noise over here on the floor is, I think, a bit worse on the ultra preset. Maybe it is trying to apply more I don't know, lumen effects or something, and it basically adds even more noise to the whole image. But let's see. Yep, a lot of shimmering. I think it's a bit worse on the shimmery side. And no, I'm getting the same effect, unfortunately, on foliage and trees. So yep, disappearing and shimmering. So the shimmering is even worse on the ultra preset, and the disappearing is even worse. They disappear a lot quicker. We are getting around 80 FPS on this location, so we did lose a little bit of performance on the ultra preset, but nothing too crazy. And the aliasing is still present, unfortunately, so the cables, as you can see over here, and everything in the distance is aliased and super shimmery at the same time. But yeah, without the motion blur, we are looking better and a little bit sharper. So with TSR, yeah, I didn't see any ghosting, and with motion blur set to off, we do get a better overall visual experience, in my opinion, especially while on the move or on the boat moving. but sadly the pixel instability, shimmering and aliasing and the noise are still alive and kicking, even though we tuned it up a notch from, you know, the high preset to the ultra graphical quality preset of the game, which seems to be the highest preset. And yeah, since we have nothing else to check out, let's see how we can improve the experience. And to do this, we will be using one of the channel's favorite and most featured tools, OptiScaler. Now for the Sinking City 2, we will be using the latest nightly version 10 and not the recommended latest build that utilizes 4.0.2c for RDNA2 users by the OptiScaler developers. The reason is, on all the stable and beta builds that I tried with 4.0.2c, it gave me constant flashbangs basically, and also full image shimmering despite me cycling through, you know, all the known fixes that we have tried time and time again on the channel in many different video games, including you know, changing the input color space options, and none of them fixed the issues. They probably fixed the flashbanging, but the shimmering got a lot worse, which was, you know, like a graphical error basically. So that's why we're sticking with the nightly build on this one and 4.1.1 int 8. Now, to download this nightly version, which used to be like a magical beast that we had to dig around a lot to find, we finally get it on GitHub. But to get there, I would still recommend we always visit the official GitHub page first, scroll a bit down to get to the Discord server invite over here. And then after we join the server, we need to click on the Opti Test Builds text channel over here, as you can see. And then this is the latest beta build, as you can see, 0.9.5 pre-3, and it was built on the 22nd of August. But if we're looking for the latest nightly build, we have to scroll a little bit further up. And as you can see, we get this link over here for GitHub for OptiScaler version 10 nightly tests. And this is specifically made for 4.1.1 basically. But yeah, it has some other different, you know, improvements. Anyway, I would suggest we click on this GitHub page over here, and then we click on this little arrow next to the assets. And as you can see, this is the latest version as of the filming of this video, which is nightly build nightly 2026-08-25. So basically, yeah, this is the latest version over here, and then we will download this OptiScaler v10 build over here. Now also, if you dig through the Discord server, you will be able to find this link over here with the AMD XE64.dll that we will 100% need as RDNA2 users. If you're not an RDNA2 user, do not worry about this. But if you are on RDNA2, which is the RX 6000 series GPUs, you 100% need to download this file as well. So you click on this .dll over here, you download it, and don't worry about it. I'm gonna have, as always, links in the description below. After we've downloaded OptiScaler and downloaded the AMD XE64.dll binary, which allows us RDNA2 users basically to be able to inject FSR 4.1.1 without the need to modify our drivers. Usually, to make my life easier, I just extract OptiScaler in its own folder, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. So right click on this if you're on Windows 11, show more options, and then I'm gonna go with 7-zip and extract to OptiScaler and then the full name, and this means it's going to create a folder specifically for this. So let's go ahead and do that. And then as you can see, we can open up this AMD XE64.dll file. I'm just gonna right click and copy, and then go a level up, go into the folder we just created, and then paste this DLL file in here. So if we do things this way, we just have a prepared folder to copy the contents to whichever game we want to test next. Now, with the folder open and ready to go, we need to copy its contents into the Sinking City 2 main installation folder. And the easiest and quickest way to do this is to open Steam. Then from your library, right-click on the game and go to manage and then browse local files. And from there, as you can see, we need to navigate to the playground subfolder, then binaries, then Win64. And this is where the game's executable lives. So this is where we need to copy the OptiScaler file. So I usually do this by selecting everything on the OptiScaler folder and then deselecting the things I will not need, like the linux.sh setup and the licenses, and then I just right click copy and then go into the folder I want to paste this in, right click and paste. And then the only thing we need to do is just run the setup _windows.bat file. Now, as I mentioned in all of my videos, do not just blindly copy my selections. Choose the options that correspond to your specific software and hardware. So since I am on Windows and on AMD GPU hardware, I will choose dxgi.dll over here. So I'm gonna press 1 and then press enter on my keyboard. Then I'm going to select the AMD /Intel option over here. So 1 again for me. If you're on NVIDIA, obviously you choose 2. So let's press 1 and then press enter. Then I'm gonna choose yes over here for using DLSSG inputs and all that good stuff. So 1 again and then press enter. And if, like me, as you can see over here, you also are prompted to install OptiPatcher, then go ahead and accept that, as well as it will eliminate the performance overhead of spoofing completely. So I'm gonna press 1 once again and then press enter. We're gonna wait for this, do not press anything. And then after you see the enjoy, then you can press any key to continue. And now with the installation window closed, we are basically done and we're ready to try out how the game looks and performs. But before we do that, we have to remember to make some changes to the OptiScaler INI over here. So let's double click on this. Then we're gonna press Ctrl F to open up the search function. And the first thing we're gonna look for is FSR 4 force. One word, no spaces, and then I'm gonna press enter. And as you can see, we found this option over here, and we're gonna change this from auto to 2. So this means it's gonna be forcing the int 8 version of the OptiScaler. And the second one we're gonna need is RDNA2 over here, and then press enter. And then we're gonna set these to true. Then we're gonna save this, and then we're gonna exit out of this. And now we're basically ready to try out how the game looks and performs with FSR 4.1.1 on RDNA2 hardware before AMD delivers it in 2027, supposedly. So thanks again to the community, and no thanks to the big corporations once again. Now, as soon as the game loads, we're gonna go back directly into the options and then our video options over here. And as you can see, we do have that NVIDIA DLSS available to us now. And obviously, since we're not on NVIDIA hardware, we're not going to be using DLSS. But what OptiScaler allows us to do is use the DLSS binary to inject whatever OptiScaler we want. So let's try NVIDIA DLSS over here. I'm gonna click on it. And as you can see, we have some presets. It's set to auto by default. And then there is this weirdness. So we get ultra performance, balanced, quality, and then we would expect to see ultra quality, but for some reason there's a typo and it says quality again. And this is the first one we're gonna try because it's the closest to native resolution. So let's go on ahead with this one. Then we're gonna go with VSync off, no FPS limit. Motion blur is set to off, and we are on the ultra preset. So we're gonna press escape once so these settings are properly applied and saved. Now, as soon as we go back to the main menu, we will immediately tap the insert key on our keyboard over here, and this will bring up the OptiScaler menu, as you can see. Over here on the OptiScalers, we need to see the FSR 3.x/4 OptiScaler. If it's not selected, just click on it from this drop-down menu and then click on the Change OptiScaler button over here. Otherwise, you will not see these settings over here. then make sure that FSR 4.1.1 under the FFX settings is the one selected and not the other options 315 or 234. And then if you change it, do click on the change Upscaler button over here once again. Now under that, we can see the frame generation section over here, and we will choose the DLSS G via Streamline as our FG input, and then on the right side we will choose the XeFG as our FG output. Then we will click on the save settings and the close button. This is very important, so don't forget it. So let's load our save game over here. As you can now see that I've loaded in my exact same save file. You can see the black screen flickering bug over here. Now to alleviate that, I just tap on the insert key on my keyboard, and this doesn't affect the menu. As you can see, it only affects the game visual stuff. And then we just go to the FFX settings over here, and underneath the Upscaler, we can see the input color space over here. And what fixed it for me was the non-linear sRGB option. So I'm gonna select that, then save settings and close. Now for you, it might not be the same. It really depends on your software and hardware combination. So try all of these settings. If on default it gives you, some issues, then go to non-linear, then try the sRGB and then the PQ options and find the one that works best for you. For me, sRGB has 0 issues. After you find the one that works for you, just don't forget to click on the save settings and then close. And as you can see, everything is working perfectly fine over here. So completely fixed, no black screen flickering and no shimmering. As with 4.0.2c, I did have white screen flickering, so I was getting flashbanged every other second, and there was massing, shimmering and flickering everywhere, and I couldn't fix it with any of the options. So unfortunately, the OptiScaler devs for RDNA2 users do suggest that we use 4.0.2c, but it doesn't work. It is bugged, and I tried it with many of the stable and beta versions, and it only works with 4.1.1 on the nightly versions as it should. Now you might notice that the image looks much better, and we are on the second quality option, which seems to be the ultra quality preset, as we are upscaling from 830p to 1080p. So this confirms it. This is the ultra quality preset, and as you can see, we do take a hit on the average FPS over here. This is the lowest we've seen so far in the interiors. So we are getting around 75 FPS. While I was not recording, I was getting 77 to 80 FPS. But it is still much lower basically than what we were getting with the None and the TSR Upscaler options over here. The good thing is we don't get any shimmering. Everything looks much clearer. We don't get that boiling noise, and we don't get the grainy noise as well, and the character faces clean up a lot nicer. Everything looks a lot nicer basically. Yeah, very surprised. You can see the particles of the fire that clean up much nicer over here. Yeah, the window texture looks perfect, a lot better than None or TSR, and TSR had more issues with this. The textures look so sharp. Look at the wood planks over here on this door. Let's see, how does this look? Yeah, the smoke looks better. This looks clear as well, and I don't see any shimmering. We do get better reflections for some reason. They look like actual reflections. So let's step outside over here, see how everything looks. And yeah, wow, that looks a lot better. We do see 69, 70 FPS as well over here on the outside, so we did lose like 5 to 6 FPS in comparison to the interior area. The exterior area does have a bigger hit in performance, which is to be expected, but overall, on the positive side, we do see all the issues we were having before being completely fixed over here. I don't see any more blurriness. Everything is super clear, very, very sharp. We don't see any aliasing, and I don't see any more pixel instability and no more shimmering. And even in the distance, that metallic staircase, the ladder, we were having massive issues before. It's like perfectly fine. And even the cloth over there looks 100% good. There's no issues over here. So this is very, very nice. Just keep in mind, we were experiencing all these issues both on no upscaler and with TSR on 100% resolution quality, which is, you know, the resolution scaling basically. So I don't think they had any excuses. This should look a little worse, but for some reason it looks so much better. So no boiling noise and no grainy noise anywhere. This is so much better than before. So let's try boating around. I'm gonna go downstairs over here. Yeah, this looks so much better. Wow. Basically fixed the visuals of the game completely. And the boiling noise on the floor is fixed. Looks perfectly fine now. Wow. These are huge differences, and the rain looks so much better. We actually see the rain particles. That is so good. And this is 830p to 1080p upscaling. It's not native, so imagine if we had access to native. Obviously we would be like hovering around the 60s over here, but I would go for it. Yeah, this looks so good. Oh, the tree leaves are just immaculate. There's no problem over there. Buildings look sharp. Yeah, the foliage and the trees are not shimmering anymore. I don't see any aliasing on the power lines over there, and the leaves are not disappearing. That's so much better. Wow. I'm very surprised by this. It's just 4.1.1 just fixed the visuals of this game completely. This looks perfect. Okay, let's go back to our initial save over here. And we're gonna go into our options and video settings over here. The first thing I want to do here is select the first quality option instead of the second one. The second one is ultra quality. I want to see if this will confirm my suspicions that this is the actual quality preset, as OptiScaler will report if it's, you know, a weird resolution or if it's 720p. So now with quality, we do get 84, 85 FPS on average over here. And if I press the insert key on our keyboard, you can see we are upscaling from 720p to 1080p. So it is 100% confirmed that this is the quality preset and the previous preset was the ultra quality preset. A lot of preset. Okay, I made it. Now, as I mentioned, we do see the boost in performance as we do go up to 84, 85 FPS in the interior over here. And thankfully, visually, almost nothing has changed over here. This looks pretty good. The particles over here are still visible. A very nice showing for 4.1.1 again. Yeah, the window texture looks very, very nice, and it's, you know, distortion over there. Textures still look pretty good. No boiling noise, no grainy noise. Let's see. Yeah, the smoke over here looks very nice. This looks pretty clear, the texture over there, and I don't see any weirdness or shimmering as we were seeing before on that, you know, kind of destroyed texture. Yeah, everything looks perfect over here. Even outside, we're getting around 75 FPS, so that's a nice boost in performance. I don't see any issues, guys. Everything is super, super clear. Even when I move around, I don't see any you know, disappearing. Even at the metallic ladder in the distance, I don't see any transparency or aliasing issues with the cloth underneath the ladder. Everything looks super clear. So let's go on the boat and see how that looks, especially the foliage. I want to see if the foliage looks worse now. I don't think so, because we can see it from over here as well. The floor also looks very nice without any boiling noise. I'm gonna head downstairs over here. Alrighty, let's see the trees. I'm gonna turn over here. Yep, pretty stable. No disappearing weirdness over here. No shimmering. I don't see any aliasing, but let's see the power cables and stuff in the distance, if that looks good still, or if we see any difference or disappearances. Nope, everything looks perfectly fine. Even from the distance, I could see very clearly there was a cable here. No aliasing, no disappearing issues, no shimmering. This is a really good showing. The trees look very, very nice and stable. That is really cool. Okay, I've reloaded the exact same save file, and as always, for science, we will be testing the Ultra Performance preset here. So let's go into Options Video, and I'm gonna drop down to Ultra Performance. So press Escape, and let's see. Okay. We're upscaling from 360p to 1080p, and I can say I'm very pleasantly surprised over here that even though we are upscaling from such a low resolution, we do see a really good showing for FSR 4.1.1 int 8 in this game. That is so good. I mean, obviously there is some weirdness, as you can see. And yeah, I do see some pixelation on the textures over here, but they do hold up very, very well. It's not as sharp, obviously, but yeah, it just looks good without any real issues. It doesn't look bad. And the performance boost is very, very good. We're back to 100 FPS over here on average in the interior, and I am recording. So let's see how this looks and performs. I want to walk around a little bit. So once we go closer, everything clears up. The character textures look very, very nice. The main character face, let me see if it's as clear as before. Yeah, it's pretty clear, even when we move the camera around. Everything looks pretty good, and this is Ultra Performance. This is upscaling from 360p. Yeah, it is a little bit blurrier, but even the, you know, window effect over there looks very, very nice. No real issues. I don't see any boiling noise. I don't see any graininess. The textures look fine over here. Obviously, we do see that they're not as immaculate as before, but they do look super, super good. The smoke looks good and not pixelated. Our reflection over there in the mirror was pretty good, a lot better than TSR and none. This looks pretty good. Yeah, the ladder over there in the distance does look a bit pixelated, but it doesn't disappear. And if we don't move the camera, we get a pretty good image over here. When we move the camera, we get a little bit more pixely over there in the distance with those very thin lines, but overall this looks really, really good, and we are getting around high 80 FPS. Now we're back to the 100 FPS around here, now 88, 90. So this is a really good showing for 4.1.1 int 8 in the Sinking City 2. This is really good. And like, if we're being honest, even with that ladder in the distance looking a little bit weird, this actually looks better than the alias shimmery mess of TSR at 100% resolution quality and the none result we got earlier. So I think this is a huge win over here. If you're on any underpowered machine like handhelds and so on. But yeah, in general, if I was on a handheld, I wouldn't mind playing on Ultra Performance on this game with FSR 4.1.1. Yeah, a little bit pixely on the building over there, but still, this is upscaling from 360p to 1080p, so this is kind of insane. So let's see how this looks. Yeah, a little bit shimmery over here, but we're not seeing any disappearing leaves. But yeah, that weirdness for upscaling from 360p to 1080p, I can forgive. And we are getting 90 FPS over here, so yeah, no complaints from me over here. Now for the GeekJ recommended settings, I would actually go with restarting the game first, because if we press insert on our keyboard, you can see that save settings and restart to apply the changes red font has appeared over here. So if we want to benefit from all the goodies that OptiScaler is allowing us to unlock, we better restart the game completely. So I'm gonna exit out completely of the game and we're gonna rerun it. So before we do anything else, as soon as we load up the game from the main menu, I would go into options and then video. And as you can see over here, I would go with the second quality option, which is, as we saw earlier, the ultra quality option. Then I would set the NVIDIA DLSS frame generation not to auto but to 2x over here, so be very wary of that. If you set it to auto, it's very possible that your game will crash completely. And then I would leave everything else as is, so resolution quality 100%, VSync off, motion blur off, and the graphics preset to ultra. Then we're gonna press the escape key on our keyboard just one time, so the settings are applied and saved, and then we're gonna press the insert key on our keyboard once again to bring up the OptiScaler menu over here. Now we are going to go over here to the frame generation XeFG section over here, and I'm gonna check this active checkbox. And then under the frame rate section over here, we will set our XeLL limit to 3 FPS under our monitor's maximum refresh rate over here. So let me go on ahead and do that. My monitor is a 165 FPS monitor, so 162 is 3 frames below the maximum. And don't forget to press the apply limit over here. And then also do not forget to once again click on the save settings and then the close buttons over here. Otherwise, these settings are not going to be saved or applied, and you have to do all of this, including the restart of the game, all over again. So I'm going to close out of that one, and we're going to load into our game and see what we have achieved. So you can have the best experience possible if you're on a similarly powered system. And yeah, as you can see, this looks and feels really, really good. I'm gonna press insert on my keyboard so you can see we are upscaling from 830p over here to 1080p, and we are using frame generation. This is active and the state reports on. And as you can see, there is no big upscaler latency over here. Actually, there's no difference while I was playing the game or in this number. As you can see, very, very stable. We are now at around 66, 68 FPS on average over here in the interior. The game looks immaculate, very, very nice, and it feels great. I don't feel any input latency whatsoever over here. So yeah, the window effect over here looks very, very nice. Textures look perfect. Everything looks super good. Yeah, no complaints over here. Let me see. Yep. Textures look amazing. No boiling noise or grainy noise. Let's head outside, see how the performance looks. And we can see 59 to 60 FPS as our base, and then it is translating to 120 FPS. When we were inside, we were seeing up to 140 FPS. So, you know, this is a really, really good experience. And yeah, basically with these settings and frame generation ×2 on, the game looks amazing. It feels super smooth. I cannot feel any extra input lag at all on my setup, and everything is instant and without any issues whatsoever. So performance wise, we do see a small drop inside and outside with the base FPS. Averages dropping a little bit, but you know, it does take a little bit more power to have frame generation on, and we are getting rewarded because we got like 120 FPS on the outside and up to 140 FPS on the inside. So that is how the Sinking City 2 lands for me on the RX 6800 XT. In the vanilla game, high and ultra with TSR can run reasonably well, but the image quality is still not where I want it to be. Motion blur is awful by default, the foliage has issues, and the shimmer, pixel instability, and boiling noise and grainy noise never really disappeared, whatever we did with our default settings. With no native FSR option available to us right now, OptiScaler gives this game the root it desperately needed on AMD hardware. FSR 4.1.1 cleaned up the image completely, fixed the flicker for me after the input color space change, and even the ultra performance preset held up far better than I expected. Now, my recommended settings, as you saw, I would just start with the second quality option, which is basically ultra quality. I would enable the 2x frame generation after the restart, don't forget that, and I would go with XeFG and cap my FPS with XeLL, so we have that latency reduction technology going. If you want more performance, just try high settings as we mentioned before, and I think you guys are just gonna be golden. Really good showing with OptiScaler and FSR 4.1.1 in this game. Now, as always, your mileage may vary depending on the area, your resolution, drivers, and the rest of your hardware. So test it out on your own system and do not blindly copy every choice I use. But if you are on a similar RDNA2 setup, these settings are what I would start with basically. If this helped you get the Sinking City 2 looking better with FSR 4.1.1 on your RDNA2 setup, smash that like button, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a GeekJ video. If you want to take it further, consider joining the GeekJ squad for early access and exclusive perks like, shoutouts, or drop a super thanks if you're feeling generous. Massive shout out to my channel architects, Paris SDR and Kostas Dari. You guys are and forever remain legends. Drop your results in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And yeah, I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Bye bye. Bye. Bye.